Welcome to the Alive One podcast, a Marvel Crisis Protocol and wargaming-based podcast. My name is Stephen Maddox, and today I'm here with Nick Shaw.
How we doing?
And Stephen Bork.
How's it going?
So today we're going to go another little faction focus. We're going to talk about Dark Dimension, but before we jump into that, how has everyone been doing? Anybody got any fun life stories?
No.
All right. Well, I do.
Hey, you tried.
Now that if a cat has a bunch of air in its abdomen, it's bad. And it made me sad. But yeah, that was my sad life story.
You're also a poet, and you didn't even know it.
Ah, there you go.
My sad life story is driving to Boston the other day, a rock hit my window, and now I have a foot-long crack in my window. Yay.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah.
Window
That
repairs
does suck.
are always annoying because it's expensive, but like not a huge issue. Like if it's not spreading, and you're like, do I just wait for it until my state inspection where they require it? Those are always frustrating.
Thankfully, I had just gotten inspected, so...
Oh, nice. You got a whole year.
Wait. But it is going right up the middle of the window.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
It's annoying.
What about hobby stuff? You guys been doing any hobby things?
Yeah. Just one model this week, but I've been working on Bast for the Defenders list. So
Nice. And you went purple, right?
slowly. Yeah, I went purple because
Nice.
black is too hard. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to try purple as well.
What are you doing for the Panther next to him?
I went with just a brown. I just did some layering.
Yeah.
I kept them pretty basic, to be honest.
I kind of want to make mine more like an actual Mystic Panther. So I was thinking about going green or something wild like that, but I don't know. I haven't gotten to it yet.
If Bast wasn't purple, it'd be fun to paint him like a weird ethereal purple, kind of like my Malekith tiger. But that is too much purple, I think. So
Yeah, I would agree. You get something contrasted a little bit.
Ooh, paint him
Yeah.
jade.
Yeah, there you go.
Jade.
Purple and
Yeah.
green contrast together.
There you go. Boom.
Well,
Maybe
the
I'll try
greens on the
that.
base, the vines, man, are going to be green, so
Yeah,
they're
you
going to
paint the
have
vines
that.
brown.
Okay, well, that would make me have to redo my entire model, Nick. So.
Yeah, just redo it.
Well, mine's not
I'm
painted
good.
yet. Maybe I'll try it.
There you go.
There we go. Nick, you working on anything?
Well, I built the Asgard terrain stuff. I might prime it today if the humidity stays low enough to do that.
It looked like it was
Um,
supposed to stay low
did
the
it?
entire day, so you can probably do it.
I just painted that Elektra model last week, so she's
Yeah.
done. And then yesterday I started painting Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Shang-Chi because they all have
Oh,
red.
yeah.
So
Oh, we should probably talk just briefly, too. Yeah, so the boys... and we recently just returned from filming a battle report at RSMP in Massachusetts with Josh, who runs that channel. The first battle report's live now, and so last week, I guess, since the last time we spoke on this podcast, I know at least for myself, I painted 6 models in a week to get ready for that. So I forgot that it's been that long since we've recorded. So we went down there, had a blast. We filmed 2 bat reps, and then Steven and I filmed a post game report, and then Nick and I have one that we're going to be filming upcoming. And it was a blast. Do you guys, have any input on there too?
I want to do it again. It was really fun.
yeah, I definitely
absolutely.
would like to do it again.
Yeah.
Actually, me and Bork talked about a ton of narrative ideas, so we got ideas for them. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially with stuff coming out, it'd be a really good
Yep.
idea.
Yeah, so
Fresh.
I think we're going to try to head down there. I mean, obviously we haven't locked down a date or anything, but around the Apocalypse release, I think is kind of the goal, at least.
Yeah,
So.
that makes sense.
I wish I could
Yeah.
get that model early so I had more time to paint it, but
Yeah, well, all we got to do is keep recording, and maybe that'll happen. So
that's true.
Let's not get too excited.
Yeah.
Although I think that's slated for mid to late September right now. I can't remember, but
Yeah,
Okay.
I know it's in September. I don't know exactly when, though.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so actually, I've had a lot more hobby stuff than I realized. Basically, my entire Defenders roster. So
Yeah, you did a lot.
I do have to say that Amazing Spider-Man has been one of the most involved MCP models, even above Malekith. Well, no, Malekith was pretty involved. Maybe it's because it was so rushed that it felt more than it was, but he was a pretty busy model. So
Yeah, he's very busy. He's got a lot going on in that model.
Fun to paint, though, I think,
Yeah.
in general, looking back, and I'm glad that he's done, because he came out pretty good for me. So,
he did. And he was in that bat rep, so
Yeah.
good.
He was.
He's even on the thumbnail.
He is.
oh, yeah, that's true. He's defending his honor, so.
Next time we
painted,
should.
So I've painted half a model. It's very exciting. Not really. But I've had like half a Silver Sable painted for this weekend coming up. And that's about it.
Well, you kind of painted Bast.
That's true. I kind of painted Bast. And I guess I washed some Kurnoth Hunters for Spearhead, but that's about it.
Cool. Well, some weeks are slow. I took like an 8-month painting hiatus, so here we are.
Well, I guess hobby thing I have actually today that's kind of cool and might be interesting is I have a hole in the side of my house where a mouse is getting into my garage. So I got expanding foam to fill it. So I'm also going to put expanding foam in the back of the Wakanda waterfall terrain piece to fill in that back. So then I can prime that, get that done, actually paint that and add it to my Wakanda table for like upcoming tournaments because I like that table, how different it is. So
I do too.
I guess that would be a bigger hobby thing that will probably be a pain in the ass if I have to guess. That I'll be working on soon.
Yeah. We should also... Oh, sorry, Nick. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we actually got potential for some really different tables coming up.
Yeah.
We'll have the Wakanda. We have my cosmic stuff. Now we're going to have the Asgard stuff. And then we're going to have more of an Egyptian apocalypse themed stuff pretty soon.
Yeah.
Although I don't know who's going to run that or do that. I'm not going to do that one right away. So somebody else might have to pick that up.
Also, Nick, too, Steven was sending us pictures of some new Games Workshop Old World terrain. That'd be a really cool MCP table.
Yeah, I thought so. If the size works out, I have to get better looks at it, but I think that'd be a fun table experience, I guess you could say.
There's actually
like
an older kit, and Crossroads actually has some of it sitting in their terrain pile if you really want to look at it.
So I'll go look at it and see if it actually works for MCP. That's good.
It might. It would be good for like the monsters because it's kind of got that goth.
It would. That'd be really cool, actually. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be really fun.
And then with Dracula's terrain piece like mixed in there somehow too, you might be able to do.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Oh, cool.
Cool. So now you can both stop talking.
You could just mute us for the rest of the episode.
So yeah, today, as Steven talked about, we're talking about Dark Dimension, which is, I guess, currently I want to say probably Defenders is up there, but they're one of my main competitive lists. So I guess to make a long story very short, a while ago, I took a couple months off from MCP. I don't know. I just wasn't feeling very inspired. And then all of a sudden, I think I just saw a local player. His name's Phil. So shout out to Phil if you're listening to this. Also, you keep playing Wakanda, so you're not the true Dark Dimension hero that we need. But I think I saw one of his lists at, was it Everwinter?
Yeah, he topped 8 Everwinter with Dark Dimension.
Yep, that must have been it then. And it was like February, and I saw this list, and I was like, what is this? And having some kind of, affinity for Dormammu already. I mean, he's kind of just like a mean dude with his own dimension, but I ended up sort of reading his card, and then I don't know, it sort of snowballed from there, becoming really, I was like, this might actually be viable competitively. And so a lot of actually what we're going to talk about today too, or address, I think, is like being creative in list building. Because I remember when I first told Steven and Nick that I was going to do this, they said that it wouldn't work. And they were very doubtful.
I will disagree with that because I talked to Phil a lot that weekend at Everwinter, and I was like, yeah, it seems possible. That guy, he did stuff with it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there was a lot of haters, if you will.
Yeah. Because I talked to Phil that weekend about his other half of that list, which was Winter Guard, because I wanted to play Winter Guard. And so I talked to him a lot about that list.
Yeah. And I went with a different direction, and we can talk some about that as we get into this episode, because if you take Dormammu, spoiler alert, if you take Dormammu, you're not typically running him as a mono piece. He's more of a dual affiliation type of situation piece. So you have to kind of find someone that works with him or works for you and then works with him. And so a lot of where this is going is through this kind of exploration, it kind of reignited my thirst for MCP to a pretty drastic extent. I think so. I ended up playing a lot more games. I started switching factions, and it just kind of, sometimes you see a faction and it just completely gets you back into the game. And this is a great example of that, I think.
Gives you that injection you need.
Yeah. And the ability, I think what I thought in my head at the time that MCP was lacking, and so some context here, in competitive 40K, as I mentioned in our intro, but I'll mention it here because it's relevant. I was a Thousand Suns player primarily, but I always began starting to run some really weird experimentalists. And one of those included, if you don't know 40K, they're like these goat people, about hundreds of these characters called Zangors. And no one thought it would work, and I won almost most of my games with this. So this is a long way of saying that kind of weirdness, taking weird things, maybe running off meta lists or counter meta lists, has always been something I've gravitated towards. And I didn't really think, or I didn't have enough experience, I think, at the time to sort of see that in MCP. And so that first time viewing Phil's list and seeing Dormammu, it gave me a good example of like, oh, you can actually do this with this game. Kind of like when Andy, when I first got into the game and saw a new level to the game, when Andy kind of pulled my characters apart, I was like, oh my God, you can do this with this game. So that same level of excitement came in for Dormammu. And we'll just leave it at that for my own personal take, at least in that context. And we'll start off. I don't want to talk too much, so please interject, guys. But I know this is, I know. And I know this is kind of like my faction. And Steven, just before we go ahead, Steven doesn't have too much experience playing into it. Mm-hmm. Steven and I have this weird thing where like we can only sometimes find the time to play together because he doesn't have TTS, or until recently didn't have TTS. And then at tournaments, we like never pair for whatever reason. So
I think we only paired against each other once, technically.
Yeah.
And that was Black Man.
And also when we play teams tournaments, we're usually on the same team anyway. So Nick and I, Nick has been the Dormammu beatstick of my preparing this list. I probably have made him cry. I probably made him want to give up on living. So he's not speaking right now, probably for the best. So
PTSD. It's all the horrible memories.
So Nick has seen this list sort of start from its inception. I've taken it to a few tournaments, and it's kind of grown from there. But before we get into why it's grown and changed, we'll start with like, why play this faction, Dark Dimension? So Dark Dimension's a little bit different than every other affiliation, because the only way you unlock it is by bringing this one model. So you literally have access to every single model in the game, kind of like Hellfire Club. You bring Emma, you have access to whatever. However, unlike Hellfire Club, there is actually a bit of a downside to Dark Dimension. Dormammu's leadership. Oh, go ahead, Steve.
That's a very interesting thought process, actually. Yeah, because like Dark Dimension has a downside to having everyone be affiliated, but then Hellfire does not, which is interesting. I guess it's a tactics card, which is the downside. Now it's restricted, so
that's such a little downside.
But it doesn't have it doesn't have a gameplay downside like Dark Dimension does, which is interesting. So go ahead with it.
Exactly.
What it is.
And so Dormammu's leadership is each character gains an extra power, but if you hit 6. The character takes a damage, and Dormammu gains a power, but your other auxiliary pieces are taking damage for him to gain power, which isn't always ideal. And does eventually have to make you think about list building. But why even use him? Well, Dormammu's super cool. Go ahead, Steve.
I was just going to say, another shitty part is like you gain that power and then take that damage in the power phase. So if you daze yourself with it, you just lose a whole game or a whole turn of activation, which is shitty. Or round.
I won't say it hasn't happened before, because it definitely has.
It's definitely something to think about. So like you probably want to bring some characters that can actually use their power, right?
Yep. Yeah, and we're gonna get into that too. But these are some of the list building constraints, but like, why even play Dormammu? In my opinion, well, Dormammu's super cool as a character. He's just kind of a dick. He's just kind of in the Marvel universe. He's just kind of this asshole who's like, he tries to take over Limbo at one point for no reason in some of the comics I've been reading, and he just appears, and they're like, oh, god damn it, this guy. So, in a similar way, that's how you feel when you see him on the table. So he really encapsulates that what the fuck kind of moment. But beyond that, too, if you're interested in a faction that brings probably the biggest character, no, I guess Thanos with 2 stones is equal threat level. I can't think of anyone else.
I think Dormammu was the biggest.
Malekith's pretty big, though. He just has a wingspan. Oh, the Sentinels are taller, technically.
Are they taller than Dormammu?
I think so, yeah. Sentinel Prime, specifically. So, he may not be the biggest, but he's almost the biggest. But if you're interested in sort of running something weird, I think you would gravitate towards Dormammu. Or if you're interested in a splash piece that's going to catch your opponent off guard, be psychologically traumatizing for most of your local gaming group, then you're looking in the right place. But that being said, with jokes aside, Dormammu is a big threat level character. He takes up a lot of space in your list, and he punches like relatively hard. Maybe not hard enough for an 8, to be honest. Like, Immortal Hulk can punch harder. Hulk at a 6 can punch harder. Apocalypse will do something different, but it'll still have that same kind of effect. Thanos does something different, but it also just like they're kind of equitable. Malekith also kind of hits harder depending on the matchup.
Yeah,
so
I would also say King T'Challa at 5 threat probably punches harder than him.
Yeah,
he's got like that 8 die rerolling 2 die attack every time,
and it's probably more reliably punching hard than Dormammu too. So, but when Dormammu does punch hard, it dazes multiple characters at once, or can. So, I've had like, for example, kind of before we move on, I've had games where his spender has dazed an entire team on an EMAP because they're all bunched up. So, and I know for a fact that Nick has experienced that. So,
ouch.
So if you're interested in something weird, you're interested in something a little bit different, and you're interested in running kind of whatever characters you want, I would go with Dormammu. And so our second part of this, I'll go over my list. We're not going to do a faction tier ranking in this video, simply because we'd have to rank every single character in context of Dormammu.
Do you know how long that would take? That would take forever.
So we'll just go over my list, and then we'll talk about sort of, our other deep dives. We're going to talk about breakdowns. We're going to talk about missions. We're going to talk about why I'm picking these pieces. And my list just recently changed, and we'll get into that. It's mostly because of the release of Loki.
God.
And I was looking for a 5 threat. So we'll just start off with the characters. So basically, you have Dormammu. There you go. He unlocks your affiliation. And in my list, I have Loki, Prince of Lies, at 5. I have Beta Ray Bill at a 4. I have Spider-Woman at a 4. Invincible Iron Man at a 4. Miles at a 4. Spectacular Spider-Man at a 3. If you couldn't tell, I'm splashing webs. Baron Zemo at a 3. Gwen Stacy Ghost Spider at a 3. And Wong at a 2. And so, as I mentioned, we'll kind of get this out of the way here, even though we'll do actually, never mind. We have a whole nother section where we're going to talk about different affiliations to pair him with and what might be best. So those are my main characters. I chose to splash webs. That's the style of play that I have been getting better at and am interested in playing. So that's one of the main reasons why I picked them. So we'll go to the team tactics. So because I'm splashing, half of these are going to be for webs. So I'm taking all webbed up, Amaze Wheat Cakes, Spider Tracker, Sacrifice, Dark Restoration, Dark Empowerment, which just changed, Fallback, Stark Armory, Indomitable, and now Giant's Blood with Loki. And so my Crisis, which have shifted and changed over time, are Demons Downtown, Sword, Deadly Meteors, Fear Grips, Montesi, and Deadly Legacy Virus. And so I think only 2 of these are E's, weirdly enough. But 1 is a pay to flip for my secure. 1 is a G setup pay to flip. So I have 2 pay to flips and demons, basically. And then for my extracts, they're all relatively low extracts. So Fear Grips is that's hammers for obvious reasons. So you take hammers for aggro, Montesi because it's another E. If your opponent gets their secures and you pull that, sometimes it's viable to run him. And then Deadly Legacy Virus is just an E on the vertical point.
Yeah, so everybody's on the midline.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so that's just kind of a brief overview of my current list. And if you have any questions, email us and follow us on Instagram, all that jazz in the middle. But I just kind of want to go over that briefly, that this is weirdly, unlike other factions, this is my version of this list. Other versions of Dark Dimension could be drastically different, except for obviously the inclusion of Dormammu. So
yeah, that's probably the fun of him, is it lets you do a lot of options right there, right?
Yeah, exactly. And this list, my list in particular, just leans into how I play, basically, which is another thing you should look at if you're building a Dark Dimension list. Okay, we have Dormammu. We have this big, beefy threat that I don't think he always wants to be on ease, but sometimes wants to be on ease. We want to walk him down, primarily. He needs to be doing damage. Granted, he's got a range 4 attack. So, which reminds me, we should just go over his card before we start talking about anything else.
Yeah, because he's probably a character that most people don't know. Because, if you want to pull that out, like a hot thought for me as well with him is that he's an 8 threat character, still only has 2 activations. So it's definitely a consideration for him, is like trying to make his action economy worth it.
Exactly. And I'll spoil alert, it doesn't always work well, which is why you have to splash a different affiliation, I think. So basically, Dormammu's standard stat line is 4/4/5 for his defense, 4 physical, 4 energy, 5 mystic. He has 10 health on his healthy side, medium move with a large base, which actually is pretty speedy. And when he flips, he does gain an extra health, just to know that. So he's a 22 total. His primary attack is Shadow Bolt. So unlike other characters, Dormammu effectively has stun. So effectively, he's immune to stun. He's immune to bleed, incinerate, and stagger, which is also really good because not a lot of the big, beefy guys are immune to stagger. In fact, almost all of them are not. So that also helps with his action economy at threat level 8. But his primary attack is called Shadow Bolt. It's range 4, 6 dice. Wild Hex, and Hex is, for newer players, Hex is, although I've been kind of lingoing this whole time, but Hex is doesn't allow your crits to pop, so you don't get extra dice. And he also has a Wild Sap power on his primary attack. So before damage is dealt, which actually has come up a few times and been disadvantageous, but we'll leave that how it is. Before damage is dealt, the target character will lose a power for each wild in the attack roll, and he gains that amount of power for each wild. And I want to specify that because he doesn't gain power normally. His Master of the Realm of Darkness basically reads, when he suffers damage from an enemy effect, he doesn't gain power equal to the damage dealt, he gains 1. And then when another allied character suffers damage from an enemy effect or from his own thing where he hurts them in his leadership, he gains 1. And then the addendum on this rule 2 is when he rolls for his attacks only, not defense, he adds skulls as successes in his roll and his opponent's. And he was the first
cool thematic piece where it's like, oh, you rolled a bunch of skulls in your defense, I'm going to hit you harder.
It's pretty awesome too. Yeah. So
it's not awesome.
And we'll get to the Loki pairing.
It's awful.
Your awful is my pleasure. So here we go. So getting those kind of 2 rules out of the way, his incantation of obliteration has a crit, hit, shield, and skull trigger. But keep in mind, this is 8 dice. On hammers, it's 9 dice. Plus your opponent's skulls don't count for this. But so after the attack is resolved, he can make another incantation of obliteration without paying the power cost, and it can target a character within 2 of the original target character that hasn't been targeted. So all this means is you target someone, and basically if they're grouping up, everyone within 2, as long as you get those triggers, can take it, and it's not capped. it doesn't say that you remove that dark miasma power, so it just keeps going if you keep rolling the triggers.
Yeah, you just have to target somebody different the whole time, which is why he can kind of drop an entire team all in one activation.
Yeah, especially on an E-map.
Probably a thought process, and I know you have Zemo on your list, or like dice manipulation to try to actually get this trigger, because it's a very good trigger.
Yeah, rerolls.
5 power is kind of crummy when he doesn't generate power super easily, but I think it's
easier than you think, though, Steven.
Yeah. My thought was like you probably want him doing this early, and I think 5 power round 2 maybe a little bit challenging, but I'm sure there's ways to get around it and play.
There used to be, with no matter the cost.
Yeah. Oh man, I bet you that was really good with him. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yep. Now that that's gone, I've been working with a different playstyle slightly. So that's his big spender. That is the attack that can traumatize. It's also Mystic, which not a lot of teams have a ton of good Mystic defense. He has some bad matchups. We'll get to that. And obviously the one that I'm thinking of here is Convocation. But
makes sense.
That's why you bring a duel. So anyways, just kind of briefly run through his other powers. He has a 3 power place within 2. And then he has a 2 power. This is the one that is amazing and pretty much makes his playstyle work. Is his 2 power called Feel the Power of Darkness. I wanted to say that thematically. So after someone attacks him, he can spend 2 after the attack's resolved to push them away S. And if they're not Hex, they gain Hex. If they're Hex, they gain Incinerate. So again, we're dealing with this kind of economy where not only can he do a lot of damage, but the pieces around him are going to be more successful in dealing damage because of all these sort of defensive tech with Hex, and then the Incinerate offensive tech. And on demons, I mean, can not matter too much, but I don't know. Never mind. I had a thought and it left me. So
no, I think for him, just interrupt. I think these 2 powers, the place within 2, and then being able to push characters back, go really well together. Because I feel like if you're just getting with Dormammu, if you want to say, hey, I'm going to push that attacking character way small every single time, you got to be smart with it. I feel like, or you got to use your terrain and advantage. Like you can't just shove them out of your attack range. But then he also has the place within 2, which I think is. I wish it wasn't 3, but I wish it was more like a 2, like a web swing, but I get it.
Well, you know who else has a place within 2 for 2 power?
All your webs characters.
Loki.
Oh, he does. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, I could see that going together where it's like at least you can place forward to actually keep beating those guys. But when I was watching you and Nick play, that push away small and then the person gets hexed or incinerate if they're already hexed seems very good because he doesn't get double tapped into very much, which looked really good.
Yeah, absolutely. And it also, longer range teams like Shield or Guardians, as we saw, like I can start dicking around with the back line.
Yeah.
And like sending Hex and Incinerate out for late game for my other pieces to sort of move in, swing up, and by the way, this will be on RSMP. So shout out there. Yeah, this battle report we're talking about. So
yeah, spoilers for that.
Well, whatever.
That's all right.
Cool. So that's kind of Dormammu's thing in a nutshell. And I think in this particular episode, we're deep diving into it, but it's mostly because this is one of your game plans. All those powers stacked up, knowing, range 4, having that kind of... Some games I don't even use the incantation, to be honest. It just, maybe I spend the 5 power for other things for him. So because this is your game plan, how do you support this, right? And can you support it all the time? Yeah, so that's kind of Dormammu's card, but also I do want to mention, and Nick and I were talking about this a little bit offline too, the way that I sort of use Dormammu as well isn't entirely as an offensive piece. If anything, I use Dormammu very often as just a tough support piece between his, basically it's because of his Feel the Power of Darkness, where he's pushing people away and giving Hex. And then some of the other cards, too, that I bring with me kind of play into this theme. Like when I don't want he's doing consistent damage, yes. But often I won't even use his spender. And I'll just use Shadow Bolt a lot. And then also kind of push people away, give him Hex. Push people away, give him Incinerate. And then also when a big guy comes in, like say the Immortal Hulk runs up the board, I'll be like, okay, cool. Gwen's going to take like a sacrifice here. So I do think oftentimes... for at least the playstyle that I use Dormammu in, or with is, yeah, he's doing consistent damage, but more or less he's also zapping power, he's pushing people away, and he's giving them conditions.
And I also feel like he's giving your team extra power. Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
well, that too.
Advanced R&D just got banned. There's lots of plays there where if someone just has one extra power in a turn, it's a huge difference.
Yep, it makes a lot of these characters, it can turn like a good character to broken, like pretty quickly. For example, Loki. I think he starts out.
Oh my word, yeah, Loki.
With the new Loki starts out with 3 power, or any Asgard to be fair. Like Beta Ray Bill will start out with 3 as well.
I think it's just 2.
No.
Oh, you're talking with Dark Dimensions 3.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I misunderstood what you're saying.
Oh yeah, my bad. So I guess this can be a good segue into the best characters, or I won't even give you the best characters. I'll tell you the reasons why I chose mine, and then I'll also tell you what to look for. So I think with Dark Dimension, there's 2 main things you're looking for. You're looking for people who would benefit from 1 additional power, and also people who are able to spend that power almost every turn. Because of his leadership, you don't necessarily want people taking damage. I will, be completely honest, it happens. And it happens more frequently sometimes than I'd like it to. But that being said, the trade-off there is, if your supporting characters take damage, he does gain a power, which makes him, some of his tricks a little bit more efficient. But those 2 pieces in mind. So you're looking essentially at abilities that maybe they designed on the cards. They say your character, I don't know, gains 1 power a turn, and there's an ability that costs 3. That's a really good candidate, depending on what it does, for you to take him in Dark Dimension, because by turn 2 you'll be playing that, and turn 1 you're just setting up anyways with him, so you're not really doing a ton of damage. None of your characters are. You're going to grab the extracts, what have you. So having that kind of 3 power when you're only gaining 1, so by turn 2 you can start to activate it and play around, is awesome. That also means you have really strong turns in turn 2, and you have really strong turns in turn 4 for your sort of tech type pieces. So in addition to that, though, you want to make sure you're having powers you're going to spend every turn. So some of the reason, I guess I just can use examples for my list. Baron Zemo, he has his charge, 2 power. I can do that turn 1. He has his charge and his reroll. So by turn 2, I can charge and get full rerolls. So you're taking this extra power and you're looking to make it the most efficient thing that you can. And that being said, who do you surround him with? That's probably a question that is important. And unfortunately, I don't think there's a clear-cut answer, because you have access to all the characters.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that you can pick from everybody. So you're like, man, who do I put around this guy? You got to look through a billion cards. And then you also really decide, like, how do I want to play him?
Yep. And I think Nick's seen this most of all, but I tend to play him half offensively, half support. So what I pull out from Dormammu, or the reason why, so originally my first Dormammu list was Criminal Syndicate and Dormammu. And I went that route because basically I was just playing Criminal Syndicate a lot. But also when you don't pull an E, I had, Scoundrels in there. So I'd take Kingpin's leadership. And then you have at least, you had Gamma, Scoundrels, Demons. And then you're looking at pretty strong secures. If you pull Scoundrels, you take Kingpin. You don't take Dormammu. And Steven just hit his head because he's so frustrated. He's like, damn it, you're right. But I think the more I started experimenting with Dormammu, the more I realized how much, at least personally for my playstyle, he starts to fit around the web's shell. And the reason being is, for example, I think the first piece I started adding to my list was Ghost Spider, Gwen Stacy.
Yeah.
And the original reason behind that was I can pull characters closer into Dormammu's like big spender and kind of pile them up for, characters that start to play around him or be like, oh, I'm not going to bunch up because you're a big miasma attack. And then you're like, okay, well now you're going to bunch up because Gwen's going to push you right where you need to be. And then secondarily, she can pull him back when he gets targeted. So it's another way to sort of become a little bit more evasive with Dormammu. So
in my experience playing against you, I think you are more likely to use her, yank him out of the way.
Yeah.
Like that happens more often than not because I'll get like a bigger character that can shoot into him or have the chance of taking him out, and you just like zoink now shoot somebody else.
I absolutely do that. And that brings me back to like, so you have these characters that provide offensive and defensive tech, and Webbs just has, you know, some of these Webbs characters with 2 power a turn are insane. Like Miles. That means turn 2, he can do a steal without no matter the cost. So that's even more powerful now. But yeah, that kind of brings me into also the defensive tech. You know, I wanted characters. You don't want Dormammu to die. As hard as it is for him to die, he's got 22 health. He's a beefy character. It's happened a couple times. I played probably 40 plus games with Dark Dimension at this point. And I think he's died 3 times, maybe 4. So even when I've lost, he has, he's not always dead.
Now, when you say died, do you mean off the table or just?
Yeah, off the table. Yep, off the table, no leadership. It happened in a Wrath League game with Brian, the TO. He killed him. And then it's happened a couple other times. But so essentially, I kind of set my list up to have defensive tech. So Sacrifice is in there. Nick can speak to this, that those times that I am taking or about to take a lot of damage on Dormammu, sometimes I'll just sacrifice into Gwen,
Yeah, she's usually hanging around him anyways. The lifesaver him, right? Yeah, makes sense.
Exactly. And she, his attacks range 4, her pulls range 4. So they kind of move in tandem a bit. And keep in mind, we should just talk about this now and get it out of the way. So Dormammu doesn't work on a lot of missions. I'll just be straight up and say that honestly. The more spread out secures, he just doesn't function. If you can't bring minimum 4 characters, ideally, he's not really going to have enough mission play to keep pace with your opponent, especially when you're playing something like Web, even Shield, X-Men, anything really wide, he'll struggle with on a map that's super spread out. You may dominate one corner of the board, but your opponent is just going to pick up the extracts and run away.
He also doesn't seem to function on certain threat levels either, right?
Well, yeah, you had that problem with Loki, where Loki finally made it so you could play 19 threat or 18 threat. Is that right?
Yeah, so I was playing 18 on Demons for a very long time.
And
I was just playing a threat level
for
down.
those of you who don't know, Demons is a 19 threat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I knew at a certain point that I had to shift into I had to find a 5 that worked. And to be honest, Black Bolt was kind of someone I was exploring at one point. Amazing was in my list because my list is dual. So on those bad missions, I bring Webs. And there have been versions of this list where I took Webs extracts. So I was like, okay, on extracts, I'll play Webs. And then on secures, I play Dormammu if I get VE. I've moved away from that. I've kind of banked on having my opponent poorly. So if they see Dormammu in my list and they're like, oh, I don't want him to have his secures, I have the illusion of me taking Dormammu in my extracts. So they take their secures, I take my extracts, and then I actually end up usually playing Webs.
Was that a 40k term of distraction card effects? He's a distraction Dormammu.
Kind of. It's kind of the psychological game you're playing
100%.
Because
because I would look at it and be like, man, do I need to bring Helios Laser if I'm a shield player to be able to hit Dormammu? And then you bring Webs, and I'm like, what? And then now I have Helios Laser against Webs. It's just like, okay, cool.
Right, so you're taking up one of your tactics cards. And I honestly think one of the benefits of kind of this style of list, there are others that aren't Dark Dimension, but one of the benefits of the style is technically speaking, I never really show what I'm really careful about not showing what I'm going to bring because I think it is a tactic built into the list where they're like, you have to prepare for Dormammu or you have to prepare for Webs, and you can't do both typically. Yeah. So you're kind of stacking your opponent's kind of choosing their own pieces based on one or the other. Because they're very different play styles. One is Webs, obviously it's mission playing, and one is a giant Dormammu you have to worry about. So with that kind of opposite or not polar opposite, but it brings attrition and mission playing into one list. So you can go kind of either or.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess back to what were we talking about?
I think a good maybe point off of that, you're talking about using webs. Like, what are other duels that you would think about? You used to do criminals. Like, is there another duel that you would say, hey, there's a good play here with lots of tools available to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
well, before we move on to that, did you want to finish up talking about the characters?
Oh
you
yeah,
think are best?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get so excited about Dormammu. I'm just all over the place. So yeah, in terms of characters, well, the affiliation does feed into that, to be fair to Nick. But I guess I was kind of reaching my penultimate point there, where the style of Dark Dimension list that I bring is one that mission plays and is also attrition. And so when looking at characters or factions, because Dormammu is mostly your attrition piece, I tend to think that you would lean into exploring more missions playing factions to pair with him. And so based on that, you'd also then sort of stack in, your normal, whatever your core is for like criminal or whatever your core is for like webs. But to be fair, you also want to be careful. I don't think you want an affiliation with a ton of really good tactics cards. They'll start to eat
because you have to split it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So there's like a few essential tactics cards that you kind of have to bring. You have to bring Sacrifice, I think, and then you want another restricted card that doesn't let you get pushed, or take damage when you're pushed. Mm-hmm. So that's 2 so far, and then you're bringing Dark Restoration because that's super useful occasionally. I actually might drop that later. But, for now, you bring Dark Restoration, which lets you bring back 3 threat level back to life on the healthy side, which late game can be amazing just for holding objectives with a healthy character at that point in time. And then Dark Empowerment, which just changed, which basically allows someone to take a power, a spender or builder, and be like, I'm not going to get any from this, and then transfer that power to somebody else. So it effectively, like if Dormammu's like, I'm going to use my spender, and guess who's going to, I don't know, Loki's going to gain all the power from this, as long as he's within 3.
Yeah,
and so
you would think, hey, I'm going to put that on a character that can then spend that power very well. I think Loki's a good example of that, right? So that's a big consideration to have.
Definitely do that.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Yeah, Loki is something. He's definitely.
We'll get into him because I do think he's important now. I actually think he's a very huge piece in this list that just evolves. Mm-hmm. So,
I would just get into him right now.
The new Loki.
No, because I want to stay on topic. I'm getting too distracted. So we'll wrap up. So best dual affiliations again. So we're looking at affiliations that can run missions well. So I have listed here on our kind of notes: Webs, Criminal, X-Men, Cabal to an extent. I don't know much about Winter Guard, Steven, so like maybe you see something here.
Well, that's what Phil did, so that's why I was like, hey, look, it worked well.
Okay. I just wasn't sure. You have some experience playing them. What do you think?
It's a complete opposite from what you're talking about. It's Winter Guard, where if it's not an E map, usually you go Winter Guard E because Dynamo's your leader. And so Phil brought in Dynamo on those wider maps to do instead. And he brought a lot of like vertical assistance with Black Widow to move Dormammu around, and then Red Guardian to protect and stuff like that.
So he went full attrition with him.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, yeah, you can do that. I don't do that. I guess
that's fair. Different play style, right?
Yeah, and it's kind of that's actually really funny. An interesting point that like I moved towards this sort of style of Dormammu because that's how I play. So. Okay, yeah. So you're looking, at least in my opinion, for this style of list, you're making up. And the thing is, when you're bringing mission playing as a duel, you're also making up for some of his weaknesses on certain missions, especially like 17s that are wide. Those are a little bit difficult for him. The diamond shaped maps secures also like not ideal against certain factions. Like it depends, right? But typically, if you're playing in Diamond, you're playing like Wakanda or Webs or one of those mission playing factions where they can jump around to the points. He doesn't like that, so
yeah, I imagine he's too slow. Can't reach across it.
Yeah, and despite, him, if you bring support pieces to make him faster, then you're really relying on one model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to flop, and that's not really how I've designed my list.
Yeah, not going to work.
Yeah. So you can think about that. There's some interesting stuff. I'm sure there's stuff I'm missing that I haven't explored yet, but I kind of just moved into webs and it's been working for me. So, I guess, yeah.
Tell me about Loki. I want to know the Loki tech.
All right.
I've never seen Loki played yet, so I want to know.
Okay, so we've got a few things here that are important. So he's an Asgardian, right? So he's already starting with 2 power.
Mm-hmm.
Then he's bringing in another power from Dark Dimension. So I guess briefly too, this is for a 19. So I was looking for a demons piece, basically, is why I started splashing him. And so he's gaining 3 power a turn under Dormammu. This isn't mischief, this is mayhem, is when he's attacking or defending, he adds skulls in the results of the enemy character's roll to his total successes. So he does the same thing Dormammu does, but also for defense.
Yeah, it's better.
Mm-hmm. And so the cool thing you can do with Dormammu specifically is he has a 1 power, basically a ping. After an attack targeting this character or an allied character within 3, or after an attack made by this character is resolved, it may use this superpower. If the enemy character's roll contained any skull results, the character suffers 1 damage. So when Dormammu is attacking, you can kind of see here, if they have a skull, it counts as a success. Yeah. And then Loki can ping them. And he only has to be within range 3 of Dormammu, not the enemy character.
Yeah, that's pretty sick.
Yep. So
it's just guaranteed damage too for attrition.
Yep, and he keeps bouncing around, and then when people attack him, he pings them back. It's kind of a really good combo. In addition to that, he also has another great thing for Dormammu. He's got a 2 power, choose another allied character within 4, and place them within 2. So he can...
it's not stat restricted. Damn, that's good.
Yep. So he can sit on the back line and send Dormammu wherever he needs to be. So, and then Gwen can pull him back as well, to be fair. So it's just a lot of like shifting forward, moving back, doing damage, coming, pushing people away. And then his own, and to top it all off, his spender, which you can do by turn 2, because he'll have 6 power by turn 2, is after, it's called Clever Ploy. It's an area 3 that doesn't hurt your friendly models. 5 dice Mystic, and after each attack is resolved, if it deals damage, he advances the enemy character S. Not a push, not a pull. It's an advance. So you can see how on an EMAP, specifically demons, that starts to get annoying with Dormammu. Almost oppressive, borderline. Depending on your matchup. He just punishes people for grouping up, and then so does Dormammu. And so on an EMAP or even on Sword or Meteors.
So what about Gamma? Because you run in, you push them away, and now everybody's taking a damage.
Yep. So this was actually mentioned for me to talk about on this particular. Steven was recently on another podcast. You can plug that real quick, Steven.
Yeah, I was on the GameStar Guardian. They're the variant cover podcast where they go more specifically into different factions. So I did their Shield episode for them last week.
Cool.
The Porco Protocol guys. Pretty good backcast. You should take a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I listened to it. It was great. Although I had heard a lot of that before, but the price you pay when you're doing a podcast with Steven. So, but I remember at the end of that episode, he mentioned I talk about the 15 matchup. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think you bring him on. If you're playing a 15 threat Gamma, are you bringing an 8 threat model? I don't think so.
I'd need another 2 in my list, I think, to do it.
And then there you go. Like, you just have 2 threats supporting an 8 threat. Like, I don't think you're going to do enough with just 2 threats to make that realistically happen, right?
Yeah, I think I'd go webs, to be honest, in that particular situation. The problem, I've done it before. Like, I have run him on a 15. Most of the time, it's not ideal. Even if I win, I'm like, that was too close, realistically, unless you're playing maybe Gamma Researcher, maybe then.
What about Gamma Legacy Virus?
That's going to pull him out of position. Maybe you only have 3 characters.
Yeah, But so what if you got Legacy Virus and you ended up with 19? Would you play him then?
Probably.
Okay,
but then that's not really the 15.
No. I was just wondering, like, is he still? It's all point dependent or threat level dependent at that point for the other card.
Yeah.
I think if you hit like gamma, like a 15, like you're not going to hit gamma research because you don't bring those. You could do like Dormammu, Loki, and then a 2 threat. That'd be kind of funny, but like I feel like you would just have a really hard time for like number of activations be very challenging.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And in my own experience on gamma, I don't know. Another problem here too is like when you take damage from the mission, Dormammu doesn't gain power.
That's true.
So it kind of then again is causing your supporting characters to take damage without really benefiting your main piece in that matchup. Because
I feel like you would probably want to splash into a second affiliation if you got stuck on a 15 like that.
Yeah, exactly. And so think about it like logically. He's 8 points, right? That leaves 7. The only options you have to bring are a 5 and a 2 or a 4 and a 3.
No, you take Dormammu and you take Immortal Hulk. There you go.
I actually want to do that, but just to be stupid. But that's definitely not competitive. So
I don't know, we should play that one day just to see what happens.
It would be hilarious.
Like, what do you do with just 4 activations, right? Like, what do you do with that?
I would love to do that, to be honest. Or Malekith too. You just take Dormammu, you take Malekith, and you take Immortal Hulk all on the same list. And then maybe Sentinel Prime when you aren't getting your 7.
Well, you're still getting your dual affiliation too, because then you're Cabal and Dark Dimension.
Yeah. I definitely want to do that. But it can't count to our like Steve versus Steve.
Okay. All right.
Win rate.
Although, so yeah, never mind. I was thinking you wouldn't be able to have the Dark Dimension affiliation, but that's not how that affiliation works. So never mind.
You get it no matter what if you bring him. So
you gotta.
So I guess in summary, the 15, as much as I'd love to, there's just not enough. I think you only run Dormammu when you can take minimum 4 characters.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that makes more sense. You're setting yourself up for success there. Like, I'm sure you could squeak by on a 15 where like, oh, someone brought something that couldn't deal with Dormammu, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, but I mean, why even do that? Just go wide on an E with webs and just push everyone out of the fucking way.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
have you, this is so kind of a side tangent. Have you thought about, speaking of 5 threats, have you thought about Ultron 2?
Yeah, I did. I actually had him in my list before he got nerfed.
Yeah, because he'd be really good with Age of Ultron, but I was like, it's another range 4/6 die attack. He could sit with them. He likes that power because then he can also move characters and he gets his throw unlocked and his spender unlocked more. So
the only problem that I find is if you're bringing grunts, you're already kind of doing enough damage with Dark Dimension. If you're bringing grunts, I want them to be able to play the mission.
Yeah, that's fair. I get that.
And so I've actually thought about Fury Jr. before in Dark Dimension because he's got that great extract play, but I don't know. Then you're bringing a 4 to kind of sit on the back point. So I guess in terms of list building too, a lot of what I think about is like, okay, you have an 8. So like, what can you fit in? So you go like 15 minus 8. All right, I got 7 or 16 minus 8. All right, I got 8. Now I have a little bit more wiggle room. 8 plus is when you start to have a little bit more options. And then you're like, oh, I can bring like 2 3s and a 4, or I can bring a 4 and a 3, or 2 4s and a 3, or 2 4s and a 2. You know what I mean? So I think in terms of those sort of combinations, and I'm like, okay, what is most efficient? What can play on this mission? And what do I need to bring consistently too for list building purposes? When I'm actually like at the table, it gets a lot easier because I have those breakdowns. They become pretty evident at certain points.
That makes sense.
And I think one of the biggest things I struggled with was at the beginning of learning to play this because, again, I had taken a hiatus from the game, just came back into it. Learning a dual affiliation, the hardest part is knowing when to switch against who, on what maps, and where. And that takes a long time. So if you are interested in running Dormammu, I will give you the advice of keeping that same dual affiliation, maybe switching a piece or 2 here, but knowing how your dual affiliation plays, knowing when to play them versus Dormammu, or even any kind of like any big character splash. Like you really need to know when to bring them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It was very hard though. Like often there were a few tournaments there where I brought him, and I know in that episode too that we just mentioned, you guys were talking about listening or looking at the 2-2 lists.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I was for a while because I kept, taking Dormammu when I maybe should have taken my affiliated.
Yeah.
And those kind of decisions in certain matchups on certain missions can really
Make a difference.
Yeah, and they can screw you, to be honest. Like, Dormammu is not good on some missions,
Yeah. So, like, what would you say he is not good into? Like, what do you see on the opposing team where you're like, ooh, I don't like how this matches up?
Yeah.
Is there a certain character piece or a certain attrition piece or map layout or not attrition piece, affiliation piece, or what do you look at?
I think the first thing I look for is unrestricted throws, pushes, or places.
Mm-hmm.
If I start to see that, I start to question if he's appropriate. So like anything that can move Dormammu around, anything that can I don't even care about the damage, initially. I'm like, oh, you're bringing in more hull, cool. I have played into that. It's really the pushing and pulling. So like the best example I can think of is like a Thanos matchup into him. He just can, we talked about the beginning of the episode about action economy with Dormammu. You really have to get your activations out of him. And Thanos can just put him in a bad spot and pull him out of place. And you don't have a ton of ways. For example, I guess, I have Gwen, right? She can pull him towards him only when an opponent attacks him. So if someone places him out of position and then they're like, I'm just not going to attack Dormammu. You're like, oh, fuck. It takes you a whole nother turn to get back in the game when they're already starting to run away with the scoring.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, so that, and then another kind of question is like, how wide can they go? If you're like Avengers, X-Men, or anything that can like splash like 6 or 7 characters, I just won't be able to keep up.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Like we discovered that with Guardians the other day.
Yeah. Yep. You just can't kill them fast enough.
Right.
You only have 2 actions, so I would say that's pretty much the biggest things. And then on the other side of that, the best matchups. If you don't have anything that can move Dormammu, he's probably ideal. On an E map, probably on an E map that's not 15 threat, probably ideal.
Mm-hmm.
If he's facing against other attrition teams on E maps, I think he's a good pick most of the time. Because you're moving them around, you're separating them from kind of like their synergy. So, for example, Steven Shield. I'm not saying I would always win the Shield matchup, but like you come in with Nick Fury, he does damage to Dormammu. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna push Nick Fury out of the way and pull Nick Fury Senior towards me, kill him, with Gwen, kill him, and then move on to like your other pieces.
Yeah.
That's at least a game plan.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a good point. Like going against Dormammu, I probably would go very wide if I saw a big threat piece like that, because that's when Helios comes in. But then, just going wide, so then I can lean on that fact where I'm just going to roll a lot of dice into him to kill him.
Yeah.
So
and that's when I take webs.
Yeah, and then I'm awkwardly on webs instead.
But that's the list, and that's my own kind of concoction too. So
have you played into X-Force with him?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was curious on like how, because X-Forces are very attrition-based midline stuff, and so I'm curious on how that would work out.
I think they're...
when I was experimenting with X-Force, I think we played 3 or 4 games when I was running X-Force, and they just couldn't put the damage through. I couldn't get the damage
I think the problem is Cable.
Yeah.
He's too expensive.
Way too expensive.
As a leader.
And if Cable goes down, it's rough. Like,
yeah, but I guess like Cable at least has the body slide, so you could shoot, get pushed back with Dormammu's ability, but you could body slide forward and be able to shoot. But he's also range 5, so you're not really.
You'd also think like the Wetworks ability would be good because you can reroll that skull, but never really helped me. So they weren't great.
Yeah. It's the wide attrition teams that I think he struggles into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you can do that with Shield. You can do that with Guardians.
Yep.
We found out.
Yep.
Cabal.
Oh, yeah. Groot has that unsize restricted throw.
Yeah, what the fuck?
That attack doesn't ever come up though, because he usually sits in the back line and protects Rocket, but I don't think that's what you do with those two anymore, really.
Yeah. So I guess in general, to overview, if you're interested in playing Dark Dimension, I encourage you to try it. It is a ton of fun. Did we get into everything we needed to?
I
do you
think so, but I do have a
so.
question. Is there a character that you always bring with Dormammu no matter what? It's always there. No?
No.
Because I expect you to say Gwen.
Well, that's because I bring Gwen against you.
Okay, fair enough. But so you don't think she's necessary all the time?
No. I use her often, definitely.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would always bring her. There's certain situations where, like, I don't think into webs, I'd probably play webs, depending on the mission.
Oh, webs versus webs.
Yeah, just do the mirror because you have a better chance of. Depends on the mission, right? So, like, that's a good point. Like, the first things I think of when I'm like, do I run Dark Dimension? Is like, what is this mission? Who am I playing against? And what can I bring to support him? And if I don't have a good answer to even just one of those questions, I'll like do the duel.
Mm-hmm. And then the other question is, why not duel into defenders? You're pretty hot on defenders with me right now. So
I don't think they work together. No. They're just like two very different. Like, defenders are really attrition-y, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, what support pieces would defenders bring in to go by Dormammu?
Bast, maybe.
Mm-hmm. You do more pay to flip stuff. But, I mean, I guess he likes power because he likes to do his spender, so that would be helpful to do that spender earlier.
But
they just don't support him well, you know? Fair. Like, they support themselves very well, and, I don't know. I've thought about it a couple times. I just don't think it would work.
I was wondering that, because a lot of your splash pieces are also from defenders or in your Dormammu list, right? So, like...
Yeah, well, if you couldn't tell, Nick, I run that kind of list. It's just...
Well, yeah.
So what Nick's alluding to is I have half of my defenders list as webs.
So. Oh, that's true, isn't it? You could run webs out of your defenders list. So that makes more sense now. Yep.
Yep. So I think that's just a trend that I'm, as a player, doing currently, is like just using webs a lot with other affiliations.
Yeah. So I mean, they have really good characters in general, right? Like some of the best steals in the game.
Yeah. Steals, placing, pushing, throwing, which is all kind of like how I like to play. So displacement, basically, in general, is an important tool.
The only like synergy defenders, like you could Luke Cage here for hire, or like Danny Rand turn on Iron Fist earlier, but like I don't know how effective that's going to be in Dormammu.
That would be interesting, actually. So Iron Fist might be a viable option, but like I don't know if anyone else would work with him.
Yeah, like Shang-Chi doesn't care.
No.
Like, he's by himself. He doesn't really need the Dormammu, and he doesn't help Dormammu, and Dormammu doesn't help him too terribly much.
Plus, he takes up your 4 slot, and my 4 slot is filled with steals or throws, basically.
Yeah, so you're thinking of what 3-threat defenders are there, and you have, what is that, Bast, Luke Cage?
Yeah.
Bast, Luke Cage, Iron Fist. Is there anybody else?
There's probably but like nothing really sticks out like, oh yes, this would be very helpful. That's a good point. Yeah. Versus Webs is known as the 3-threat affiliation where you can just bring all the 3s. So it makes sense to have like, hey, I'm depending on 3s. Maybe I need that. I wonder if you go X-Men, right, with maybe new Weapon X coming out, if he's got to play, because he's just going to be so many dice. That might be a play.
Instead of Zemo, basically, I think is where I would swap that out for. Because like, I guess in my list building too, when I'm thinking about slots, I'm also thinking about in my 10, I'm looking for, Dormammu takes up 1, and then like I'm also trying to dual affiliate. But then a kind of third or tertiary concern is like, okay, I have this 4. I can only take 4s in these certain scenarios. What kind of tools will I need? So throwing, stealing, so any kind of displacement or stealing missions. Or, like I mentioned, Nick Fury, something that plays extracts with grunts, gives you another model on the board. Those are all kind of useful tools. And then you base that on threat level. So like, obviously Bill's in my list. And I know everyone, hates Bill. I don't like bringing him, but he's got a size 4 throw.
Yeah, makes sense.
So sometimes, say I went up against a bigger character and I would still have my sacrifice play. I would still have like kind of the redirection, but I'd also just send Bill to go deal with that dude while I kill everyone else.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Like if you're going against Midnight Sun and they have Immortal Hulk, you probably bring Bill. And then like he's also just great in general, so you can do a lot with him.
and he's efficient with 3 power.
Oh my god, I can imagine.
Yeah, I bet that throws right there.
Yep, he turn 1 throws. He can use his spender turn 1 too. He's just a super efficient model when he has that extra power.
Yeah, it's funny because you can just move, throw somebody off a point, last activation.
Yep, on turn 1.
On turn 1, it's pretty good.
So that's another concern briefly too, like pacing. With Dormammu, you have to maintain. Part of the reason when I'm in some of these bad matchups that I'm talking about is when the other team can just outpace you, especially on extract play, which is why you need 4 models, I think, to use him.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have less than 4 on like a Senators or Spider Infected or something like that, you just start to lose the pace really quick unless you bring the right characters.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Actually, mentioning Senators, I was wondering, would you ever run him into a Senators matchup? Or would that depend if it was Demons as your secure?
If it was Z down the middle with Senators, I mean, depends on the points, right? Because the first thing's the mission, second thing's like what I can bring around him. So,
what is Senators, 17?
17's rough for Dormammu because that's like 2 4s and a 2. I prefer the 4 with 2 3s. So like 19's my favorite matchup, I think. 19 gives me a 5.
Senators is actually 19. So if you pulled, if you managed to pull Senators and Demons, would you run Dormammu?
Yeah, I think so with Loki now, because Loki moves up, takes one of the Senators, moves. No, he can't move back after that. But I don't know. With Loki, I think it works.
Plus, for at least for a round of the game or a turn of the game, everybody's going to be mid, or a lot is going to be mid. So
yeah, and you're going to kind of trap them, and then also that turns on Dormammu's like, I mean, I don't know if there's any situations where like that push small would really screw somebody, but they can only move once back up. So you could say, hey, I'm going to push that guy way back. So you could say I'm going to push Dormammu like really far up into mid, and then really keep my opponent super far back, because then they can't. And then if you keep like the rest of your support pieces back a little bit, they can't reach out and touch you again because they can't move.
Well, that's why Loki's good too, is because as Dormammu's pushing away, you have the option once every 2 turns for Loki to move up and advance everyone away again.
Yeah. I think that could be interesting. It'd be challenging because you can only hold 4 Senators at a time, I guess, and then that could be a problem. But I think if you're holding 4 and you're playing
plus like 2 secures,
I think you would still be fine. Like you would still win that point wise game.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think 19 is like his ideal. If you had to pick like the perfect threat level, you pick 19 for him.
Yeah, I think if I saw Dormammu with Shield going at Senators, I would probably play pretty aggressively. I would say I need to get a lot of these extract points, because if you start getting them and you can just kind of keep me away, that's going to be a very hard game to come back from. So I would probably have to be like, I have to really jump into your face to try to grab these things, which might not go super well, but I don't think sitting back I could really do anything.
Yeah, because like he moves up to your point and just sits there and takes the damage while you outpace your opponent. Basically, it's the situation that happens, and Loki keeps moving up, pushing everyone away, and then moving back. So that's an interesting thing. So I like that. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I would maybe throw Senators in there, because I don't think webs aren't bad on Senators either, because you have so many web swings to move still.
Oh, that's true. That's actually why I dropped it initially, because I was like, oh, they won't get a double move. But now that you're bringing that up, it's a very excellent point. So.
Or at least that might be something to try out, like in a game. Like, hey, let's force this extract and see how it plays out, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So do we have any more questions? You guys can pick my brain a bit.
When are you going to stop playing Dormammu? Don't need a beat stick anymore.
I don't think ever. I don't know. He's kind of moved into being a list I'll always have, even if I'm like running other stuff.
Right. When is Steven gonna get to deal with Dormammu?
Next tournament, when we force a pair.
Force a pair.
I mean, next time we're both at, it's going to be our team tournament. We're on the same team.
That's true, and you're on the same team.
I'm not even running Dark Dimension. Spoiler alert, I'll be running Defenders at that one. So
hey, I'm running Defenders.
We're not on the same team. We kicked you. We booted you. Well, actually, there's a long story behind why. Yeah. So I guess in summary, too, thank you for listening. Thank you for dealing with my weird spiel. We do, on our notes, we do have the point to talk about like creativity in gaming, but I think that can be its own thing. We've talked enough here. if you have any questions surrounding Dormammu, feel free to reach out to the Live on One Gmail. That's kind of like where I sit on this team, at least, for immediate contact. Yeah, he's a ton of fun. I highly encourage people to give him a try. Although, if everyone's running Dormammu, then I don't know. But be a pretty uninteresting meta, to be fair. Or it would be really interesting because you can take whatever character you want. So, you two have any kind of like last thoughts or?
No, not about Dormammu, really. I mean,
yeah,
I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, you guys have been awfully silent.
I mean,
I've talked so much in this episode.
I kind of knew that was going to happen because you're the guy running it. I mean, I've played into it a lot, but until recently, it's not been good. Like, we recently discovered wide seems to be the way to deal with him.
Sometimes.
Yeah, and it's got to be mission dependent too, right? But
well, also dealing with doesn't mean you'll win.
No,
you're just putting yourself in the best place to be.
It doesn't mean you're going to win at all. I didn't.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. We're Alive on One. Check us out on RSMP. Come to the team tournament up in Maine. And Godspeed, Spider-Man. Bye.